Tonight, back in the groove, a quick step closer to normality as the government delivers a good reward for good behaviour that will have Queenslanders dancing their way into the weekend. Free parking, the $320 million proposal to put hospital car parks back in the pocket of the public. Inside, the sex tape scandal that put a Brisbane Bronco at the centre of international attention. Jobs go begging, the South East Queensland employers crying out for staff with thousands of positions up for grabs. And feeling the squeeze, the warm hug that's enough to make you want to leg it right out of there.
This is 10 News First Queensland with Sandra Sully.
Good evening. For months, Queenslanders have barely put a toe out of line, and tonight there's more reward for the state's COVID containment. A swathe of restrictions are relaxing earlier than expected. Dancing is back on the cards at weddings and formals, and aged care residents will have more freedom. But there's no change to the border as cases interstate continue to climb.
Along with weddings, dancing is also allowed at school formals. Gatherings at home and in public have increased to 40 people, and it's back to bingo for aged care residents with excursions given the green light. Unfortunately though, footy fans didn't get the news they've been hoping for. The Chief Health Officer says she's unlikely to ease stadium capacity numbers any further, despite the push for a full house at the Gabba for the AFL Grand Final. Queensland recorded just 2 new cases, both in hotel quarantine, and Victoria celebrated its best day in 4 months, just 2 new cases and 0 deaths. John Paul Gonzo for 10 News First.
The Greens have made their first major foray into the election campaign, announcing a plan to scrap parking fees at public hospitals. The minor party also made it clear it won't help the LNP form a minority government. But the opposition and Labor played it relatively safe today, with Deb Frecklington finally shaking off a scandal-plagued week. Let's bring in our network political editor, Peter Van Onselen, for some expert analysis. And Peter, it's been a rocky week with plenty of controversy for the LNP. How much has it hurt the opposition?
Well, I certainly think it's hurt them, but the extent of it's hard to tell in the first half of an election campaign. People already know that there are tensions internally. They already question whether the LNP are fit to govern. So in a sense, that concern about them is already baked in. The real issue of this election is, do you think that Anastasia Palaszczuk deserves another term in power? The LNP, they do have their work cut out to some extent.
When it comes to border restrictions, the issue has split and divided the country. When it comes to Queensland, how big a part will that play?
It's a factor that works for the Queensland Premier in the south and southeast, where she is far more popular. It works against her in the northern areas of the state, and that, of course, is exactly where Scott Morrison is putting his attention.
All right, Peter, thanks for your insights. Hand on heart, I have done nothing wrong. They are the words of Gladys Berejiklian, tonight facing fresh questions about what she knew of her former partner's allegedly corrupt dealings. But after a week of extraordinary pressure, the New South Wales Premier is not budging. A Sanford Valley woman has found herself wrapped up in a rather dire predicament. Her cat had cornered a 3-metre carpet python in the garage, and when she rescued it, the reptile coiled itself around her leg. But there's no situation too slippery for Queensland's finest.
That's right. Come on, little guy. I know you're not happy with me.
They eventually removed the python and placed it back into the garden. I hope it was someone else's garden. Stay with us. Living longer but sicker, a new snapshot into Australian life. Free for now, the Porsche driver charged over Melbourne's deadly freeway crash wins his bid for bail. The job's going begging on the Gold Coast, why employers are finding it so hard to secure staff. The toast of the Tonys, the Aussie musical that's on song with Broadway. And the pooch making a degree of difference at a Queensland university.
Well, good evening. Unfortunately, not a great start to the run home. We have a multi-vehicle collision that's occurred in Daisy Hill tonight. If you're travelling northbound, that's definitely going to slow you down. As we take a look at the north side here through North Lakes, it's slowly building from the Bruce Highway getting onto the Pine River Bridge. Also delays on the Gympie Artill Road too. It is very heavy through Carsedine, and delays continue for the Rusak Expressway as well. It's been mean thanks to DeSalle Salmon, and I'll have more traffic soon. For now though, it's back to you.
Relaxing afternoon plans between two friends in Sydney descended into a fight that resulted in one man being shot in the chest with a spear gun. A court today handed David Tully, known locally as Dingo Dave, a 3-year sentence. His victim is lucky to only have been left with a small scar. The Porsche driver charged with filming police officers as they died after a truck crash has been granted bail. Richard Pusey's lawyer argued that it was unreasonable to keep him locked up because of COVID-19. The Australian musical Moulin Rouge is the toast of Broadway tonight after scoring 14 nominations at the Tony Awards. Adapted from the hit movie starring Nicole Kidman, the show has been nominated for Best Musical. After the break, New Zealand about to go to the polls, so will Jacinda Ardern retain power? Also, why the Queen caused serious controversy during this public visit. And the ice rink worker who is the definition of remaining cool under fire. But first, here's Georgina Hill with a look at today's weather.
Thank you, Sandra, and good evening. It was a bit of a foggy start to Friday, particularly through the west this morning. It quickly burnt off, though, clearing to a blue sky day, and the temperatures are about to increase. Brisbane today reached a top of 29 degrees after an overnight low of 15. Right now in the city, it's 26. Fairly clear across Queensland today. Elsewhere in the country, though, cloud is crossing through South Australia, Victoria and into New South Wales in a trough. That's generating some patchy rain and storms in the area, while cloud through Tassie is starting to thin out in the wake of a front, causing some showers there as well. Top temperatures across the southeast today. Redcliffe reached a top of 27 degrees. It was 26 on the Sunshine Coast, 29 in Caboolture. Logan, a warm top of 32 degrees, a very warm 33 in Ipswich, and a top of 29 degrees in Toowoomba, 28 on the Gold Coast. I will have the all-important weekend weather forecast coming up a little later.
In a dramatic new development in the US, senior Republicans have accused Facebook and Twitter of interfering in the presidential election by blocking stories that might hurt Joe Biden. One senator claims it's an attempt to rig the election. Here's National Affairs editor Hugh Remington in Washington. Hugh Remington is in Washington, D.C. Hugh, how serious is the Republican Party in taking on these social media giants?
Well, Sandra, if Trump loses, it will become part of the Republican Party narrative. It'll become part of the narrative of those diehard Trump supporters that this election was at least in part stolen from them by people like Facebook and Twitter. They're using language like monopolies to describe Facebook and Twitter, and Lindsey Graham said that they have become too dangerous. We haven't heard the last of it, Sandra.
That's for sure. All right, Hugh, thank you. From one election to another, New Zealand will head to the polls tomorrow, with Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern spending the final day of campaigning, reminding Kiwis of her record. Polls report her Labor Party is preferred by 46% of voters, while the National Opposition Party is behind with only 31%. Almost 19,000 new cases of COVID-19 have been detected in the UK as the government increases restrictions for London. From tomorrow, London will be upgraded to Tier 2. That means residents will no longer be allowed to socialise with people they do not live with, banning visits to private homes, pubs and restaurants. And as millions of Brits lock down, the Queen has made her first public appearance since March, and she caused quite a stir by not wearing a mask. Tens of thousands of anti-government demonstrators stormed the streets of Bangkok, defying the ban on protests. Crowds went to see the King's authority reduced, using the signature three-finger salute as a symbol of resistance to the country's monarchy. They are also demanding the Prime Minister step down. An ice rink worker in upstate New York has been cool under fire. He was cleaning the ice before a youth hockey session when a burst hose started leaking hydraulic fluid onto the motor. The man did manage to drive off the ice where the flames subsided. He was unharmed. Well, stay with us after the break. The staggering rise in jobless Australian families and why there are fears we could be more at risk from serious complications from COVID-19.
Well, hello again from the traffic chopper as we get set to head into the weekend and take a look around the city. Things aren't looking too express here for the Rosyth Expressway getting in and out of the city. If you are Gold Coast bound, well, some very heavy delays. It looks like an absolute car park, pretty much from 8 Mile Plains all the way on down to Daisy Hill, and also it's quite heavy down through Yatala too, and delays are easing as you head northbound as well. It's been me, and thanks to Sal Salmon. Stay safe on the roads and have yourself a great weekend.
Tonight's top stories: Queensland back in the groove, the Chief Health Officer easing restrictions earlier than expected, bringing good news to brides and grooms, graduates and grandparents. A healthy boost for patients, the Greens unveil the plan to scrap parking fees at public hospitals in a bid to buy back car parks. And the woman at the centre of the Katoni Stag sex tape scandal hit with a $600 fine and a dressing down by the magistrate. Police have smashed a Gold Coast drug ring. 9 people were arrested after a number of raids across the coast. They are facing a total of 53 charges between them. The searchers uncovered weapons, drugs and steroids, as well as thousands of dollars in cash. This morning's arrests are the result of a 6-month investigation. Given Queensland's unemployment rate is the highest in the country, you might find this next story a little puzzling. Job vacancies are through the roof as businesses struggle to find staff, unable to compete with the COVID carrot being dangled in front of workers. A little brown dog called Rex is earning his pats, working as a therapy pet at the University of Queensland. Now, clearly he doesn't have a degree, but he is a good listener with a canine counselling program helping relieve student stress and their anxiety. It is time now for Friday Night Sport and to Matt Burke. Matt, so much going on this weekend, and of course tonight we find out the first team into the NRL Grand Final.
Yeah, that's right, Sandra. Good evening. Not only a battle of the teams, but of the coaches too. We preview it next. Plus, Scott McLaughlin throws a scare into the camp, hitting the wall in practice. And the Wallabies coach declares why not now before Bledisloe 2.
The colourful campaign to put an end to Ushies, the project, 6:30.
Good evening. The Lions and Cats will approach tomorrow night's preliminary final with completely opposite attitudes. While Chris Fagan is desperate to avoid talking about the end result, Chris Scott says you'd be a fool not to go down that path. Tonight, the first of the NRL Grand Finalists will be decided when the Storm takes on the Raiders at Suncorp Stadium. Veronica Eggleton joins us now. And Veronica, it could be an historic night for another reason.
It certainly could be, Berkey. This might be Cameron Smith's last game in the NRL. The Storm captain has yet to decide if he will retire at season's end, meaning if Melbourne lose tonight's preliminary final to the Raiders and he does decide to retire, well, this will be his last game. Of course, after 428 matches in the NRL, he has very little left to prove and is widely tipped to hang up the boots at season's end. He has been criticised, though, for delaying that decision, but his teammates say he's earned the right to make the call on his own timeline, and in fact we should enjoy the last moments of a wonderful career.
Sandra, predicted rain this weekend will make it incredibly tough for the drivers around the mountain.
I know, but it's great to watch.
It's very good.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burke. Stay with us. Fire warnings are set to come into play over the weekend. Georgina Hill will have all those details right after the break.
Good evening. Well, it is hot and dry with total fire bans in place over the next 4 days for residents in Ipswich, Logan and the Somerset regions. Sunday and Monday are shaping up to be the main days of concern for authorities. I will have more on that in just a moment. Today, though, Brisbane CBD reached a top of 29 degrees after an overnight low of 15. Right now, we're sitting on 25. So it's fairly clear across Queensland with very little cloud cover around. Elsewhere in the country, cloud is crossing South Australia, Victoria and New South Wales in a trough, and that's generating some patchy rain and storms for those areas, while cloud is through Tassie. That's starting to thin out in the wake of a front, I should say, causing some showers in the area as well. A dry air mass is shooting over the southeast, so authorities are really concerned about fire conditions over the next couple of days. It is getting hotter, there's no rain around, and the northeasterly winds are expected to pick up around the west, especially on Sunday and Monday. Very high fire danger across those 2 days for Ipswich. Cooler air is expected to push through on Tuesday, easing those conditions. Unlike the rest of the country, there isn't isn't a lot of rain around for Queensland. It is staying mostly sunny throughout the state tomorrow, aside from the slight chance of a shower over the western Gulf country. Temperatures will remain above average in the southwest and southern interior as well. Around the country tomorrow, a few showers for Sydney, heading for a top of 26 degrees, 22 for Canberra, 20 in Melbourne, a cold one for Hobart, showers and 14 degrees. A sunny day on the way for Perth, 27, and some storms for Darwin, 31 degrees. Well, it's nearly the weekend. This is how it's shaping up. 31 degrees for Cairns, 30 for Townsville. Mostly sunny. Similar conditions for Rocky, 29 degrees, sunny, and 33 for Roma, and a partly cloudy 28 degrees for Bundy. Back home, it's set to be a warm weekend, partly cloudy across the southeast. Overnight temps falling to between 11 and 15, with daytime temps reaching 26 to 32. Out on the bays tomorrow, east to northeasterly winds about 10 to 15 knots, tending northeasterly in the afternoon, and the seas will be just below 1 metre. Brisbane tomorrow looks great, 29 degrees, similar conditions to what we saw today. Looking further ahead, partly cloudy on Sunday, warming up to 30 degrees for Brisbane. Monday, 29 degrees, and those conditions will stay similar throughout the week. 27 for Tuesday, 27 on Wednesday, heating up again Thursday and Friday, 28 degrees. And into Ipswich tomorrow, 31 degrees for Saturday, very warm. So Sunday is the main day of concern, 34 degrees for Ipswich on Sunday. Similar conditions Monday, 31 degrees, staying warm throughout the week, 29 degrees for Tuesday, 28 on Wednesday. I will have the full extended forecast for the Gold and Sunshine Coast coming up a little later in the bulletin.
For Win viewers, that's where we leave 10 News First. Stand by now for your local Win News Bulletin. I'm Sandra Sully from the team. Thanks for your company. Have a great weekend.